Hello and welcome into Spiritual Mixtape. I am Daisy Mack, your host, and today I'm so excited because I have Ginny Cicero on the pod with me. And if you've been following my social media or you're on my mailing list, you know that I am obsessed with parasites, with these things that are living inside of you. I regularly take pictures of my dogs all over me to prove why I need to parasite cleanse. And this was a hot topic when we did my group program summer of last year, when we really divided the group on who thought parasites should stay and who thought parasites could go. And I've not stopped thinking about it, and this is why I'm bringing Ginny in today to talk to us. But Ginny is more than just a parasite expert. She is health and fitness personified, with over 20 years of experience from Hollywood celebrities to cancer patients. She has a unique ability of combining all the special, important elements of holistic wellness and the science too. So I'm just going to hand this straight over to Ginny and say, hello, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for that very kind introduction.
Oh, it's just a fraction of what you deserve, to be honest. You have answered some absolutely banal questions from me.
That's
with
what
such
I
grace
do.
and patience.
I love talking about parasites.
Well, so why don't we dial it back and I know that you have an amazing background before the parasites became part of the equation. Why don't we put it in context for the people who are listening who haven't met you yet?
Okay, so my background is in the fitness industry. So I have a degree in kinesiology, and I took that into some of the more prestigious certifications, if you will, so that I am qualified to coach at the college level, the university level, if I wanted to. But I really stuck more with old ladies. That just seemed to be who gravitated towards me. So I had to deal with a lot of restrictions and people that, felt fragile. And, even though the older I get, the heavier I lift. And I'm sort of obsessed with fitness. I think of it as the fountain of youth. So it's my background, but it is something that will never leave my side. It's my passion, and my heart and soul is in it. But over the years, you just anyone who's involved in the fitness industry or in fitness as a hobby, even, you can't separate fitness from nutrition and wellness, or you're just missing a huge part of the picture. So over the years, I've learned that, you can over exercise, or you can't, as we say, you can't out exercise a bad diet. So I've learned that everything is integrally related. And, the natural progression to that is, fitness, diet, and then wellness. So over the years, I got involved in the wellness industry, and I sort of parlayed my expertise in fitness into the wellness space, which has been, for me, working with nutraceutical companies at the professional level. So answering questions and acting as a consultant to practitioners such as yourself, medical doctors, chiropractors, and other healthcare practitioners in the natural medicine space when it comes to supplements and health and wellness and, living a really healthy lifestyle. So that's the backstory.
Yeah, I feel like there's two more podcast episodes there. One about lifting weights, especially for women over 40, and men, I've got you too, but it's a big thing for women as they move into their menopause or perimenopause, to be lifting those weights. It's like a real, like you said, a fountain of youth. It stops the aging process almost.
It's incredible. I just last night I was in the gym, and I had this young guy in his 20s come up to me, and he said, "I can't believe you're lifting them. I can't believe it." He was stunned. I said, "I've been doing this all of my life. You build up to it. I didn't walk in the gym and just start lifting this heavy." But, people are always surprised to see a woman who's on the thin side lifting heavy. And it just goes to show you that, You do not have to be big and bulky to lift heavy weights and to benefit from lifting heavy weights as a female. And this is something men know. Men know that you lift heavy and you get shredded. It just happens quicker and easier for them.
Yeah. Oh, to be a man, life is definitely easier when it comes to maintaining your figure. But the other thing that you said that was really interesting, wait, where's it gone in my head, is you talked about, oh, I've lost it. But I think what I was trying to say is you were talking about like natural supplements, which is how we know each other as well. So when did that come into your life? Like, we'll gently get to Cellcore.
Okay. Going back, probably it's about 15 years ago now. I was working as a trainer, and a gal that I knew from the fitness industry who owned her own gym, she and I collaborated. She would send me people, up to LA where I work, and I would send people down to the Palm Springs area who had, basically wealthy people that had multiple homes that needed a trainer in whatever city they happened to be in, right? So we traded back and forth. We became friends, and she became a very well-known person in this space. Her name is JJ Virgin, and she's written a lot of books. She's done a lot of TV shows. She did one called Freaky Eaters, where she worked with people that were obsessed with eating, stuff like cornstarch out of the box. Really, really interesting people, shall we say. So she, from there, she went into, in the natural medicine field, she went into creating a whole community to support practitioners who had a message, who wanted to get the message out to as many people as possible through things like PBS specials and places where they could be seen by more people and get their message out to a whole community of folks. And we became friends that way. She introduced me to the people at Thorne. So I worked at Thorne for many years and really learned a lot there. She had introduced me to Designs for Health. I worked for them for a short period of time. And then one thing led to another, and COVID, and there was a whole, change up in the whole industry, and a lot of companies started not needing sales reps or consultants. And so I wound up sort of just focusing on fitness again. And then one thing led to another. I was introduced to Dr. Todd Watts, the co-founder of Cellcore, and I found out what he was doing. And I have to tell you, at the time, I thought it was Greek. It was Greek to me. I didn't think Americans or people in the first world, if you will, had anything to do with parasite cleansing or any need for that type of thing. And I came to learn that that's a misnomer and that we all have parasites, and I can go into the ways that you can get them. But that's what got me involved into Cellcore. Is once I learned what this product line could do and the benefits that it had for pretty much anyone, I was blown away. And I was so excited to be able to work for this company and to really spread the word about what they do. And the growth in the years that I've been with the company has just been phenomenal. And it continues to grow and grow and grow. And I have to tell you that something like this doesn't happen with a product line that's just kind of, it's something to try. It may help you. It may not. Well, you don't have the kind of growth this company has experienced unless it is helping a lot of people a lot. So
You're preaching to the choir here. I have every Cellcore product, but let's speak to our naysayers.
Sure.
So I actually mentioned to you there's a Washington Post article that says nobody has parasites. Now, I have a personal opinion on this, but let's hear your professional one first. What do you think about that general, it doesn't need to be about the article, but that general line of thought?
Well, if somebody asked me that, usually the question I get is, well, how would I know if I have parasites? And I ask them a series of questions, and they don't need to nod their head or say yes or no, because I know they're going to say yes to one or all of these questions. And that is, do you eat sushi? Have you swum in lakes, rivers, or streams when you were a kid or an adult? Do you kiss your dog? Do you sleep with your dog? Do you change the cat litter box? Do you like your meat raw or rare? Do you eat vegetables that you have practically, peeled the skin off of before you eat them? Have you been bitten by a flea, a tick, a mosquito? These are the ways that parasites get into our bodies, and it is unavoidable. It doesn't matter how much you shower. It doesn't matter if you've gone to Mexico and drank the water. It doesn't matter if you've done a lot of traveling in countries where the hygiene might not be as great as, the US and Europe or Australia, whatever you want to compare it to. We are all exposed to parasites. And parasites will enter the body through all these different ways. It could be through any of the, the mouth, the nose, other cavities, and you're stuck with them. And you're stuck with them for life. And when people tell me that, people don't get parasites and parasitic infections aren't real. Okay, well, I'll give an example. When I first started with Cellcore, I met a medical doctor who had moved to this country from Costa Rica. And she said, one of the things that shocked me the most when I moved to the US from Costa Rica was that everyone here didn't do a yearly parasite cleanse. She couldn't believe it. She said, that's something that where I'm from, everyone does. It's just as a matter of health, especially with the children. And it's so common in other parts of the world. And I started thinking, instead of thinking, well, of course they would in those countries, I didn't think that way. I thought, what do they know that we don't know? And, some of these are countries with, very strong natural medicine communities for literally thousands of years. And even our own Native American community, they have, shamans and medicine men and medicine women who have known these things for, 100 years. And yet we think we're untouchable. And it just didn't make sense to me. So, I know that people get parasites. That's the first part. So that's the way they get into our bodies. And and then there's usually a follow-up question. In fact, I just spoke with a woman about a half hour ago who asked me, well, isn't there a symbiotic relationship between parasites and the human body? And that's an excellent question when you think about it, because if you look at the gut microbiome, we have what we consider to be dysbiotic bacteria or bad forms of bacteria. And then we also have the good guys, the beneficial bacteria. And there's a balance, or there is supposed to be a balance in the gut to where the good guys keep the bad guys in check. Once the bad guys start to overgrow, and there are different mechanisms for that and how that happens, eating a lot of sugar or having a weak immune system. And there's, you're the expert in this area, so you could speak to that. But there's lots of ways that the gut microbiome gets unbalanced. And when you have that overgrowth, that's when problems start to happen in the gut and in the microbiome. So it is not that way with parasites. There is nothing that they are contributing to us. One thing I will say is the parasites themselves can harbor mold, mycotoxins, heavy metals, dysbiotic bacteria, viral particles, bacteria inside their body. They consume that. They can actually consume hundreds of times their own body weight in these pathogens. And where is that going? That's in your body. It's not just, hanging out there. I mean, I don't want that in my body. So I want it out. At Cellcore, we have this little motto, better out than in. So, for those who say that, there is no such thing as there are parasitic infections. I didn't read the article. I saw the headline, but I didn't read it. So I'm sure they would say, there are parasitic infections that you can treat with antiparasitics. Ivermectin has become a very popular one, and there are other ones. But the average stool test will test for 8, 15. The most I've seen is 23 different types of parasites. With that number, guess how many parasites there are? There are thousands. So if you're only testing for at the most 23, well, of course you're going to come back with negative stool tests.
I mean, for me, just to go back to the article really quickly, they don't mention the what test she actually does. She does a test with her doctor, and the fact that she's done it with a Western doctor anyway, and it's not gone through like Rupa Health or any of these other places that do the large like Gutsuma, like all of these. Yeah, I don't actually order any of those labs through my practice, but anything you're getting from your Western doctor is not gonna like. But you can order labs through nurse practitioners, through private practices that really will show you everything that's in your system. And when I was first introduced to Cellcore, so this is March-ish last year, I had so many things in my system because we were living in a moldy house. And I actually cried when I saw the results because my body couldn't flush anything out. I think the day before I did the test, I'd filled my car up with gas, or petrol, as we say in the UK for the people listening back home. And there was so much gasoline in my system, which must have been I washed my hands. I like just breathing it in. My body couldn't even remove like everyday toxins anymore. I was so filled with them. And Cellcore, that first month of the protocol, I felt so much better. And the second part of the protocol, which isn't the Parasite cleanse, this is like a longer 4-month like protocol that I was on. But the second month, you do go into the Parasite cleanse. You do begin to get going. And I was doing it at the same time as a friend and her daughter. And I was like, if this is just the beginning, I don't know what's going to come out of my system next month, because immediately there were worms. There were like dead worms. And I felt it straight away in brain fog. They were just dying. They were dying off. And it was, if I hadn't seen it, I probably wouldn't have believed it. But then when I saw everything, I was like, okay, I'm converted. This is not what I want in my system. And I'm not even a big meat eater, or like, I would say that in general, I'm pretty healthy. There was a lot in there.
Yeah, I mean, most people will have that kind. I mean, if you have mold, that's a different story. But when it comes to what you eliminate, most people will have that experience. I mean, I look at myself, I do eat a lot of meat, but I don't eat any sushi. I never go barefoot. I don't have any pets. So I am somebody who I never, even as a kid, I never swam in lakes, rivers, or streams because I would stand in the water and I would look down at what was swimming around my feet. And I would think, if I go any deeper there, this is going to get into my bathing suit bottoms. And it freaked me out. So I never went. So I've lived kind of a life where I wasn't really exposed to a whole lot, but I had them. And you see these things and people will say, one thing I can tell you in this industry is people are not shy about sending you pictures about, what's coming out of them. And I had a call earlier today with a practitioner who said, we're having a conversation like this over Zoom. And he said, can I just text you this picture? Like, he was so excited. That's how people get when they pass these things. He said, I want you to see, to tell me if you've ever seen anything like this before. So he sent it to me. I looked at it. Yes, I have seen this before all the time, so things that could come out of you are strongyloides, which is a type of, or threadworms, which is a type of parasite, ropeworms, pinworms, tapeworms, liver flukes, blood flukes. So they're not always plaques. Like you can build up, like you get a plaque on your teeth, you can build plaque in your arteries or plaque on the wall of your gut. And that can be scraped off with the Cellcore products. So there can be plaques that you're seeing. It's not easy to identify these things. And even if you were to rinse them off, package them up and send them to a lab, it's a very complicated process to find a lab that even knows how to identify half of these things, because as we established before, most of the lab companies out there, even the ones in the natural medicine space, they're not identifying the majority of parasites that exist out there that we wind up picking up. So how are you going to identify something that you're not even testing for? That's why it's easy to just assume we all have a certain level of parasitic load or burden that's placed on the body. And the reason it's so important to get that out is because the parasitic burden is it's a burden that's on the immune system. So as the immune system is over here trying to, juggle all of these toxins and pathogens, it should be over here stopping infections from coming into the body and other insults that we live with on a daily basis. But its resources are divided because of this toxic burden. So the idea is you lower the toxic burden and you take the pressure off the immune system and organ function so we can flourish the way it was intended to.
So I know that when this happens for me, I have no brain fog and I have increased energy. And that for me is like the ultimate wellness. But how else do you see not positive results, but just results for people? Like how does it manifest in general with Cellcore products? Like when people go through the cleanse, how do you know it's been a good cleanse?
Well, I'll speak for myself and I'll speak for others at the same time. So for me, because knock on wood, I don't have any health conditions and I'm very grateful and pleased about that. But because I understand the nature of how we get these types of infections and parasitic burdens or pathogenic rather burdens in the body, I want to do what I can to stay on top of it. So I do a 1-week parasite cleanse around the full moon about every quarter. And one thing that I notice as somebody who isn't dealing with any conditions is I have had a lifelong affliction, if you will, with sugar cravings. And I've had them my whole life. And I have learned that is typically, and there's a lot of things happening metabolically when your body craves sugar, but one of the possibilities is parasites. They're very smart and they will talk to you in their own way. They will communicate with you and basically make it known that they want more sugar. And that's where the sugar cravings come. When I do that parasite cleanse, it's done. I don't think about sugar. I don't want sugar. It doesn't even come up on my radar. And the reason that's obviously sugar is one of the most highly addictive substances on earth. It's one of the most damaging to your health in so many ways. So just on a general health level, consuming less sugar is so important. But then when I look at, and this comes from, the fitness part of me, when I look at wanting to be lean and having, my body composition to be what I want, the easiest way to manage that body composition is not to have, I'll put it the other way, to be able to manage my blood sugar. So it's much easier to manage my blood sugar when I am not consuming more sugar, obviously. And that comes from my body saying, feed me, here's the little parasites over here. Give me some sugar. I want some cookies. Give me some, So when I cut that out, I am not having those cravings. I'm not feeding the machine all of that sugar, which sort of indirectly leads to better body composition because I am consuming less sugar that, if not burned off, will be stored as fat.
Oh, thank you. That's such a complete way of like answering.
Oh,
Like
sure.
when you step away from the woo, which I
Mhm.
love the woo. My company's obviously called Spiritual Mixtape, but there's so much science now. We live in like a day and an age where there's a real blend between the two worlds and they're beginning to come together more. But you just answered it with so much science. It makes my heart happy because I do have a mixed audience here who love the science. They want to hear about the body composition and what the benefits are beyond like you're going to feel better in your head. Like they actually want to be like, yeah, how am I going to maximize my workout and
Well,
all of
there's a
that.
whole world to it. And if you want to talk about even looking things from more at an esoteric perspective, there was a book that came out, I think it was 2017, by a woman named Kathleen McCullough called This Is Your Brain on Parasites. And the thesis of her book was that parasites will hijack your personality. It doesn't get more intense than that. And that she specifically, she's looking at parasites in general, but the parasite she's talking about throughout that book is one that's called it's either Toxoplasma gondii or plasma toxic. I think it's the first way, Toxoplasma gondii. That is the parasite that you get from cat feces. So that's why for years we have said pregnant women shouldn't change the cat litter box. Of course, I just thought, for years, I just thought, well, maybe they'll catch something. Well, we can all catch something. But with a pregnant woman, that's going to be potentially devastating to the developing fetus. So, but it goes to show you as well that these parasites, if left untreated, I'm not going to say that everyone that changes the cat litter box is going to have a changed personality, but the idea is that if you get infected, it's not treated and it goes, long enough or far enough, they literally can change your personality. So this gets into a whole world of thinking that goes beyond what we know commonly as accepted scientific knowledge right now, and goes into a whole world of quantum healing, quantum entanglement, and in the grander scheme of things, you're looking at how we interact with biology as a whole, and the whole there's a whole world to fungi, let's put it that way. And that's just one type of organism that's very interconnected to nature and human beings being a part of nature. So it's all interconnected. It's all part of the greater one.
Well, again, you're going to have to come on another time because I want to talk to you also about quantum healing. You've just thrown so many good things into this one podcast that there isn't enough time to get into it. But what I do want to do as we sort of close up the podcast is talk about the full moon element. Like now we have to get woo because it does sound completely bananas, but there's science to it.
Mm-hmm. There absolutely is. So, I tell this story a lot, but it's just such a great illustration of the validity of this. So when, during my day-to-day life, I knock on doors and speak to doctors and introduce them to our product line and tell them about the benefits and some of the science behind the products. So conventional medicine is not, just to put it mildly, is not always open to hearing about a lot of these concepts that we believe in natural medicine. But there's a lot of crossover as well. And I know this for a fact because the longer I'm in this industry, the more conventional medicine practitioners are crossing over, if you will, because it's a grassroots movement. The people know, they know there's something to it, and they know we're not being told everything about our health because it's controlled by the powers that be. And we could go, that's a whole can of worms that we could go into, but I won't. But I was called into an office of a plastic surgeon. And this was a very posh office in Beverly Hills overlooking Sunset Boulevard and ninth floor, beautifully decorated. And this woman, young professional plastic surgeon. And I'm thinking, why am I here? Because I couldn't imagine her embracing this world when she's a plastic surgeon. So she's doing, beautification. But I thought she must believe on some level in beauty from the inside out. So I was very pleased to be there because I thought, wow, this is somebody in conventional medicine who gets it, that it's not all just about, the facing forward. It's what's going on inside. So I started telling her about our product line and what we did and how effective it was. And then I started to bring up, the parasite cleansing around the full moon. And I really started tiptoeing around that because I thought this is going to seem so out there to her. But I just kind of like, well, parasites are more active around the full moon. And, there's a school of thought that thinks, and she says, hold on there a second. And I'm thinking, here it comes. And I'm waiting for her to just tell me, what kind of science do you think? She leans forward at her desk and she said, the full moon is no joke. And I thought, wow. And then she said, any doctor that has done a rotation in an ER over a full moon can tell you that. And I thought, wow, okay, that said so much to me right there because, I don't know if she was thinking about it from the same perspective as me, but it didn't matter because what she was doing was she was confirming that there is a change, a difference in human beings over the full moon. And where do we get the word lunatic, right? From la luna, from the moon. There is a whole folklore to it about werewolves and, all these activities around the full moon. So I thought, well, I am supposed to be a science-based, professional here. So I'm going to do some work and look into it. And I went on PubMed. I did some research. I'm not going to say there are clear studies showing that, but basically what I was able to discover is there are correlations between parasitic activity or how active parasites are around the full moon. That is undisputed. And what happens is serotonin, which is the feel-good neurotransmitter in the body, or one of them, serotonin is elevated during the full moon. We're humans, and as humans or mammals, we are subjected to the gravitational pull of the moon. So we are affected by that. Our serotonin is elevated and our melatonin is suppressed. And because we have more of our feel-good hormones going through our system, we're more relaxed, and that allows parasites to be more mobile throughout our bodies. As disgusting as that is, that means they're going to be able to lay eggs more easily. They're going to be able to move around internally more easily. And therefore, they're more active out there and available to if you deal with them at that time. So it's sort of a bonus to be able to catch them at that time because you're going to get more of them over the full moon.
Oh, I love this.
It's scary and gross and creepy to think about, but I always equate it to a car accident, right? It's like you don't want to look, but you can't help it. You're compelled to look. So it's the same kind of thing with what you see in the toilet after you pass parasites.
Well, Ginny, I'm going to leave it on that amazing note.
Okay.
What a high. So, a Spiritual Mixtape is bringing a very deep and beautiful healing, or a deep and beautiful level to Cellcore's Parasite Cleanse. We're adding a breathwork component. What I have found on my personal journey over the last 5 years, and definitely over the last year of really healing my body, is how much I need the physical purge and the emotional release at the same time, and I need to be held. It needs to not feel scary. So that's what we're going to be bringing into the Spiritual Mixtape collective offerings. And if you want to know more, jump on the site. Ginny, if people want to know more about you, where do they find you? Where's the best place to get information?
Well, I would say they should look at the Cellcore website. I would direct them there. There's so many fantastic articles and so much information. And because they were created by doctors, they have the resources to provide all the studies and, the expertise that I don't have, at least to that level. So cellcore.com it is a great place to start your research into parasite cleansing.
Awesome. So we will drop that into the show notes. Ginny, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. It was my pleasure. I loved it.